Hello, Akira here, welcome back to the channel. Today's video essay will be a review of Fire Emblem 9, Path of Radiance, which I have recently finished as part of my quest to complete all the games in the Fire Emblem series. So similarly to my review of Fire Emblem 3, Mystery of the Emblem, I present a largely plot spoiler-free review of Path of Radiance. I say largely plot spoiler-free because I'll be detailing my thoughts on gameplay and mechanics. As a result, throughout this video there will be gameplay spoilers. This includes my thoughts on the gimmicks of a few specific maps. As such, I will give a warning before map-specific things, followed by a relevant timestamp that you can jump to for when the spoilers end. Still, if this is a concern for you, and therefore you decide to give this video a miss, I completely understand. As a preface, my playthrough was on the localized hard mode, which isn't the highest difficulty available, that being the Japanese Maniac mode, due to wanting to play the game without going through the patching headache. Additionally, as of the time of writing the script, I have not yet played Radiant Dawn, though due to wanting to avoid getting spoiled on it, as of the time of video release, I will have at least started it. While I don't think this will change my assessment of the gameplay, I mention this for transparency, especially since, spoilers from the title and thumbnail image, I very much didn't enjoy it. If you want to go straight to why I disliked it, then there is once again a timestamp to that in the description below. Still, there are a few things that I did actually like about Path of Radiance, and I would like to start off on a more complimentary note, so let's start off with the outright positives. Though it's not a high priority for me as a gameplay first person, I thought Path of Radiance's story was pretty alright. As a main character, Ike's frankness is refreshing, and for the most part, the themes explored in the plot are done fairly well for something released in the mid-noughties. I like there's a select few characters that have plot, but not gameplay, immunity, and thus are able to contribute to the story events, which I feel they do in a meaningful way. If someone told me they liked POR and Tellius generally, due to the character interactions and the overall plot, I would believe them quite easily, even having not yet finished Radiant Dawn. Part of this characterization is aided by the process of building supports, which build from fielding units on the same map, rather than units having to spend turns next to each other, or take certain actions in proximity to or helping one another in some way. This works from a story perspective, as it means that the character interactions and development can happen in tandem with the events of the main plot. This is in contrast to what can commonly happen in other entries in the series, where the support conversations can feel disjointed, like the units are having one conversation split into 3 parts, or just having a random conversation at an inopportune time. Moving on to the gameplay side of things, I like this approach as it means that there isn't the tedium of having to have units engage in the end turn simulator next to each other. Additionally, while I do sometimes enjoy the closer planning of support building in Fate especially, I have to be in a specific mood for it. This style means that there are fewer things to keep track of. Having played Fate, Three Houses, and Engage in the past, I also think that the home base here is the best of them all. It's just a menu that lets you organise and buy things and manage your supports etc. with no additional minigames or fluff, and it is amazing. It's organised and means that you can spend more time on the Fire Emblem gameplay itself, rather than running around a needlessly large base to talk to people for conversations that may or may not, probably not, be relevant to the current story events, or for random minigames that provide some minor gameplay benefit. Now let's move on to a look at game mechanics from Path of Radiance that I find interesting. The first of these is the Tellius skill system. In terms of skills themselves, there are some skills introduced here that I really like, such as the inherent ability of all infantry to shove units with lower weight 1 tile forward, and for some units, the skill proper to smite forward for 2 tiles. These have since been backported into FE8U's skill systems, which is something that's a ton of fun to play around with in various Fire Emblem ROM hacks. Then in terms of the system developments, the ability to customize your units with skill scrolls is fun, while the capacity system prevents the player from simply loading a unit up with all of the skills, which is a form of balancing. It's not completely balanced. There are some skills I looked at and thought were incredibly bad, but overall I think that Tellius' skill systems have a lot to offer. One mechanic that's entirely unique to the Tellius games is the way that transformations of the Laguz work, which is the collective in-universe term for various races of people who can shift between humanoid and animal forms. At least in Path of Radiance, it's my understanding that the mechanic works slightly differently in Radiant Dawn. This involves a meter that starts at a different point per unit at the start of every map, and gradually builds up each turn before transformation into Laguz form, and then gradually reduces back before transforming back into humanoid form. While initially they have very good raw stats when transformed, they have only one weapon in the form of their inbuilt claws or beaks, so you can't give them forges like Beorc human units, and they also have promoted unit experience gain. Additionally, while untransformed, they have no combats to speak of. Though this sounds like a lot of downsides, what I like about them is that there's a lot of unique utility that only they can offer. As the most prominent example, the game's dancer is Laguz, who, when transformed, can dance for adjacent allies, like FE4 dancing or Byleth's goddess dance for engage. There is also a beast-type Laguz who is capable of shoving all cavalry units while untransformed, and is able to shove nearly all mounted units with a single weight stat booster, and is able to shove all of them while transformed. The game also gives you tools to help manage Laguz Mesa in the form of the Demi Band and Laguz Stone, allowing you to keep any beast-type Laguz permanently shifted in exchange for a slight stat debuff, and have any Laguz instantly transform after usage, respectively. This prevents interesting item management questions that I really enjoy, such as, do I give the high weight Laguz the Demi Band so that he can shove everyone without fail, while also having higher move, so he can shove better in later turns? Or do I give it to someone else so that I can have more people capable of moving forward mounted units? I will admit though that for the most part, the Laguz combat doesn't live anywhere near up to the hype that seems to be presented by the plot, which I imagine could be disappointing for some players. The last main mechanic that I find interesting about Path of Radiance is another mechanic unique to Tellius. This is not biorhythm, which is frankly pretty unimportant in the vast majority of instances, and is kind of random to introduce as a mechanic. Rather, it is bonus experience, or BEXP for short. Essentially, you get experience that you can freely distribute to any unit of your choice for completing certain map objectives, like keeping green units alive, or even just as a reward for completing maps within a faster turn count. As a result, it allows you to level any unit fairly easily without having to go through the training arc with them. Funnily enough, I was asked what my thoughts on it were as part of the brilliant John O'Aberfe's Agree to Disagree series some time ago, before I had started playing Path of Radiance in earnest. I believe my thoughts on it were mixed even then, and have become more so now. It's definitely very strong, and does offer an incentive for completing time-sensitive or otherwise specific map objectives, which I do appreciate. Still, it's so strong that it's very centralising, and in my opinion, overly so. There are definitely units that it's considered quote-unquote better to use the BEXP on, like your flyers or cabs, meaning that it's very much a the rich get richer situation. The thing is though, even for the quote-unquote less optimal choices, it just means that you don't have to actually work for your training project. To be fair, I think that grinding most so-called bad units in Fire Emblem isn't exactly hard, just tedious, but I also think that it somewhat defeats the point of the exercise. My thoughts on BEXP lead us quite nicely onto what I consider to be the downsides of Path of Radiance. This is going to be pretty scathing, so this is a reminder that this is just my opinion, and also I very much appreciate anyone who watches past this point, with a special appreciation for anyone who does like Path of Radiance. It can be understandably difficult to watch or listen to someone express their dislike of something you enjoy, so I'd like to make it clear that I'm not judging anyone who does like any of the following aspects of POR. My first big problem with this game is that, Laguz mechanics aside, the resource management in this game is not at all interesting or meaningful to me. Part of this is the BEXP issue, meaning that feeding kills or managing experience really isn't something you need to think about in most circumstances. Once you unlock the ability to dump it on someone, you can turn near anyone you want into a god. However, it goes beyond that. There's no need to really think about promotion items at all, apart from for your healers, due to automatically promoting upon reaching level 21 being a thing. And then there's such an overabundance of money, even without selling things, that you can buy high tier weapons and make high might and hit physical weapon forges every chapter. Obviously, you can challenge yourself by not using BEXP or making strong forges, and I appreciate that this is said from the perspective of English Hard, as opposed to Japanese Maniac. Still, I would like for the games I play to actually introduce the challenge itself, rather than me having to impose my own limitations, especially on a blind playthrough. Secondly, the enemy quality and therefore the threat they pose is low. For the most part, they do little damage and /or are slow. It doesn't help that like in localized FE7, effective weaponry only has double effectiveness rather than triple, meaning that combined with their often high weight and bad hit, they are deeply unconcerning. Insultingly as well, the enemies are sometimes somewhat bulky, especially late game, and so are not reliable to one round KO. in addition to greater number in a lot of cases. The result is a clog of enemies that are both unthreatening and also taking up tiles who are just there wasting your time, which I find very irritating. This contributes to my third point and ultimately biggest issue with this game. The gameplay is really slow. Said as an impatient person whose setup can't support speed up, unbearably slow. The animations take forever. Even if you turn off the combat animations, you still get long combat animations happening on the map, which means that a single round of combat still takes several seconds. Since you can't skip the enemy phase, as mentioned previously, there are often a lot of enemies. It just means that it can be several minutes of long stretches during which you straight up aren't playing the game. My last big negative is that there are some really cringe map gimmicks. Explaining my reasoning required me to get into specific maps throughout the course of the entire game, which is why I'm saying it after the slow gameplay gripe. So if you care about being spoiled, then please do feel free to pause the video and use the timestamps below to jump to my overall conclusion. Warning and adequate time to react has been given, so I can return to my final point. Examples of these cringe map gimmicks include, but are not limited to, the pitfalls on the map that has earned the nickname Mecha's Bridge, the Black Knight fight that even a cap strength Ike cannot reliably win, and only Ike and a select other few units being able to damage Ashnard. I don't see how these scenarios are at their core any different from the ones that people complain about and revile from other games, like the infernal weather in FE7 or the snow shoveling in Rev. I will admit that it is true that the base conversations often give you very pointed advice for a lot of these scenarios. For example, it tells you to shove the priest out of the way to reach the other enemies in chapter 22, solo, or to run away from the Black Knight fight if your Ike doesn't seem like he can beat him. Still, foreshadowing the annoying map gimmick doesn't make it less so. In a way, it almost made it more grating, because the way in which it was communicated was so contrived to me, compared to if it just showed up as a tutorial pop-up box or hint option from battle preps. I have some other gripes with this game, but I'll avoid going into them for two reasons. One, they're much smaller and less important than the points I've outlined thus far. I don't want to dilute my argument. Two, I've spent more words and time being negative than I'd like to. So, we'll move on to the verdict. While I appreciate the home base, and some of the gameplay mechanics present here in Path of Radiance, I think the negatives are really damning. The result is what I find to be a very easy tactical game, with few actually interesting strategic elements, that is unbearably slow, and sometimes has random map gimmicks that the game hits you over the head with in terms of what to do. I genuinely think that hard mode FE9 is all three of easier, more boring, and more irritating than FE8, which is one of my favourite games in the series. I wouldn't recommend this game to anyone considering playing it for the first time today, unless there's some combination of 1, already interested in the game for some reason, like wanting to complete all the games, 2, relatively new to the series and extremely patient, and /or 3, able to speed up the game very dramatically. Even for someone who is markedly higher on story and characterization than I am, I wouldn't recommend playing it. Though FE10's story was always very much intended to be a sequel, unlike FE7 later being made as an unplanned prequel to FE6, you can just watch/read a plot summary, or even watch all of the dialogue as a movie. It would spare you from having to play the game, or rather, having the game often play itself. So, the name of the FE7 tier in my personal Fire Emblem game ranking tier list has to be changed to something else. Maybe there is. And I think we found an FE game that I like less than FE7. I honestly didn't think that would happen, so I am impressed in a sense, I guess. That was a strongly negative review, so if you're still here, thank you for watching. Negativity can be exhausting to write and to listen to, so especially if you do like Path of Radiance, I very much appreciate your viewership. Please do let me know your thoughts on FE9 in the comments below, as I would like to better understand why some folks adore this game, or to see if other people also have similar misgivings. Part of why I decided to make this video is because from my point of view, the Tellius games, and especially Path of Radiance, seem to be very beloved by the Western FE community, so I wanted to publicly express a very unloving opinion. In addition to you, the viewer, huge thanks also to the good people of Actual Lizard's Discord for keeping me company during this experience, and thus keeping me as sane as possible as my laughter quickly became more deranged. I'd especially like to thank the people who offered to stream something else to give me a break, the most common providers being Heroic Valplume, the creator of Oops All Archers FE8, and my fellow Brit Morsaud. And of course, to Actual Lizard himself for reading through this script for me. As I write this script, I am hoping that I will enjoy Radiant Dawn more, and will therefore be able to give a more positive review of the second Tellius game. At the least, it will involve faster animations because I'm using a save that has already completed the game, and thus has no animations, including no map animations, thank god, unlocked as an option. So that's a thing you can do if you too found that Path of Radiance gameplay moved too slowly for you. If you enjoyed this review, or if you didn't, please do let me know, whether it be through liking or commenting on the video, or subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Disliking works too, I guess. This is possibly an inflammatory opinion. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Until then, have a good one.